Good morning and welcome to the Point. As you may know, we spent the week in Cleveland for the Republican National Convention. The GOP is packed up and moved on, and now Donald Trump and Mike Pence as the ticket will try to convince voters across the country that they are the right selection. When we arrived in Cleveland, our first stop was with the Michigan Republican delegation. They were talking about how to be unified and why it was important to get on board with this campaign.
I am very, very happy to be here and happy to be with the folks who are going to put Michigan in the Trump column in November.
And the first speaker was a one-time presidential candidate who had a clear message for delegates that might have been on the fence about the then presumptive nominee.
To introduce a man who
If you're not working for Donald Trump, you're working for Hillary Clinton. That's the message former presidential candidate in New Jersey, Governor Chris Christie, had for the Michigan delegation this morning. He says it's time to support Trump, even though he admits he wasn't always on board.
Now, let me be clear. Donald Trump was not my first choice for president. I was.
But since that wasn't going to happen, he says it's time to get behind Trump and keep Hillary Clinton out of the White House. And that includes reluctant former candidates who signed a pledge to support the nominee, but now are not doing so.
It is unacceptable to me, and it should be unacceptable to you, that anyone who signed that pledge is not now adhering to that pledge and supporting our party's nominee.
Christie wasn't alone. Longtime Bush friend and Republican leader Peter Secchia from West Michigan says it's time to follow the rules. Just because your candidate didn't win doesn't mean you can change the rules now.
I was a Bush guy. Nobody doubts that.
But Secchia says Donald Trump saw something the electorate longed for. In his words, he read the tea leaves accurately. As for Bush,
he didn't read the tea leaves properly. And you know what? He was low energy, Jeb.
The former ambassador appointed by Bush 41 says now is the time to come together.
Everybody back home is going to be watching the television, watching to see what Rick Albin's reporting in Grand Rapids and what somebody down in Detroit's reporting. I can't keep track of who's reporting anywhere except Rick. He just seems to hang around longer than I do.
Well, maybe not quite as long, but I did attend my first national political convention 40 years ago this summer.
The chair now recognizes the senator from Alabama, Jeff Sessions, for the purpose of nominating.
Moving on, it was time for the business of nominating candidates for president and vice president. But first,
please welcome Michigan Attorney General Bill Schuette.
There was other business, including Michigan's only speaker at the convention.
This convention will come to order.
It wasn't long after the gavel sounded that Attorney General Bill Schuette took the stage. Something that Michigan GOP Chair Ronna Romney McDaniel was clearly pleased about.
Cleveland has put on a great party. We feel very safe. And then to top it off with our Attorney General speaking and getting a standing ovation, which doesn't happen very often, it's been spectacular so far.
As for Schuette, it was about the message.
But most importantly, substantively, it was nice to get the Michigan story out. The fact is that, Michigan is really a slice of America. We're big cities, small towns, factories, farms, and, we've experienced the problems. We've had, challenges in Berrien County and when two officers were, court officers were slain. And the point is that wherever you live, Michigan's a little bit of America, but these values of standing up for our law enforcement, I wanted to share with, everybody here in Cleveland, Ohio.
But it was also a little fun. What was the reality versus what you thought it was going to be?
I had a great time. It was fun. It was a gas.
Without objection, the previous question is ordered. The question is on adoption of the resolution.
The evening brought a brief rules fight.
All those opposed.
That left some hard feelings and, no doubt, that Donald Trump would be the Republican nominee. A convention of this size draws a lot of media, as well as delegates and guests, and just getting around amid all the security was worth a story in and of itself. For the media, it all starts here, the Cleveland Convention Center. It's a sprawling area turned media workspace. After we clear security, this is where we come to edit our stories, maybe get some extra video from the networks. Then it's off to the queue, as it's called. Through the curtain maze, up escalator 1, then 2, then to the shuttle.
Thanks, Nick.
Here's the creative part. Our secure buses travel several blocks, all fenced in, but still on city streets, while allowing pedestrians and cross traffic to pass through. And then you end up here at Quicken Loans Arena. It's also something called the Marketplace. Now, we're going to take you inside Quicken Loans in a minute, but first, let's take a look at the plaza. It's not too busy right now, but it has been packed for the past 2 days. It's a place to eat, drink, listen to music, and generally unwind after a hard day of receptions and rules fights.
Roll call vote! Roll call vote!
And if you need a souvenir, something with an elephant or Trump or even a little bling, you can find anything. And I do mean anything, particularly if it's red, white, and blue. Then just turn around and see how the groundskeepers are doing at Progressive Field. But that's for the delegates and guests. Reporters head inside.
Thank you. Welcome.
Another quick security check, and we're in the queue. And on the way to our temporary home, sweet home. And it was from there that we watched the convention unfold. We talked with some Republicans about why they would support Trump despite being in favor of another candidate initially. But at least one of those candidates from an important swing state showed no sign of getting behind the eventual winner.
For me, throughout this election season,
the Michigan delegation meeting this morning featured the host governor from Ohio, John Kasich, who says he won't even go to the convention.
This convention will come to order.
He's one of the dozen and a half or so candidates that Trump defeated. He talked about his affinity for Michigan, and he talked about his career.
I was showing some people the other day that I used to look through this door at the governor's office when I was just a little aide in the legislature, and I looked through, and now I am the governor.
But he never mentioned the presidential race or Donald Trump. But for two high-profile elected officials from Michigan, setting out this race is not an option.
My pick in the presidential race before was John Kasich. I have a lot of respect for John Kasich. I think he would have made an amazing president. Our nominee, though, is Donald Trump.
Lieutenant Governor Brian Calley admits that he and Donald Trump have a very different approach. But it's not just about Trump, he says. It's about the future.
For my own kids, I don't want to have a continuation of what we have today. And make no mistake about it, Hillary Clinton is a continuation of the world as we have it today.
Attorney General Bill Schuette, too, started out with a different horse in the race. You were an ardent, out front, first out of the gate Jeb Bush supporter, and Jeb Bush didn't even come into the convention. How do you reconcile this candidate, and how do you get other people to back him?
You know, I was a Jeb Bush guy. My candidate didn't win. But you know what? The choice in November is between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And, you know, I'm not going to toss the keys to America's engine to Hillary Clinton.
Even Governor Kasich's reluctance to show up at the convention hosted in his home state or endorse the Republican ticket may have been outdone by Senator Ted Cruz, who agreed to speak in primetime and then did not get behind Trump and Pence.
If you love our country and love your children as much as I know that you do, stand and speak and vote your conscience. Vote for candidates up and down the ticket who you trust to defend our freedom and to be faithful to the Constitution.
In the end, the nomination of Donald Trump and his vice presidential running mate, Indiana Governor Mike Pence, took place just as it appeared it would for the last several weeks. But that's not how it started. In fact, the majority of pundits, reporters, even Republicans, didn't give Trump a chance. I asked one area congressman how his nomination could come to be.
Donald Trump has been able to capture the frustration, a lot of the anger that's out there. You know, it's a bit of a new day within the Republican Party. There's certainly some struggles of what direction it's going to go.
The last two Republican nominees for president won't be in this building. The last two Republican presidents won't be in this building. What does that say?
Well, obviously the party is fractured yet. I think that's part of the convention here, is to bring it together, have that opportunity to do so.
That's part of what we saw here at the convention in Cleveland. Up next, what did Donald Trump have to say when he accepted the nomination? That's next. To the Point. Welcome back to The Point. The city of Cleveland turned out to be a gracious host for the Republican National Convention. On Thursday night, when Donald Trump entered the arena and addressed that convention, here's what he told them about moving forward.
friends, delegates, and fellow Americans, I humbly and gratefully accept your nomination for the presidency of the United States. Tonight, I will share with you my plan for Action for America. The most important difference between our plan and that of our opponent is that our plan will put America first. Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo as long as we are led by politicians who will not put America first. Then we can be assured that other nations will not treat America with respect, the respect that we deserve. The American people will come first once again. My plan will begin with safety at home, which means safe neighborhoods, secure borders, and protection from terrorism. There can be no prosperity without law and order. On the economy, I will outline reforms to add millions of new jobs and trillions in new wealth that can be used to rebuild America. When I take the oath of office next year, I will restore law and order to our country. Believe me, believe me. I will work with and appoint the best and brightest prosecutors and law enforcement officials to get the job properly done. In this race for the White House, I am the law and order candidate. The irresponsible rhetoric of our president, who has used the pulpit of the presidency to divide us by race and color, has made America a more dangerous environment than, frankly, I have ever seen and anybody in this room has ever watched or seen. This administration has failed America's inner cities. Remember, it has failed America's inner cities. It's failed them on education. It's failed them on jobs. It's failed them in crime. It's failed them in every way and on every single level. When I am president, I will work to ensure that all of our kids are treated equally and protected equally. Every action I take, I will ask myself, does this make better for young Americans in Baltimore, in Chicago, in Detroit, in Ferguson, who have really, in every way, folks, the same right to live out their dreams as any other child in America? Any other child. To make life safe for all of our citizens, we must also address the growing threats we face from outside the country. We are going to defeat the barbarians of ISIS, and we're going to defeat them fast. Once again, France is the victim of brutal Islamic terrorism. Men, women, and children viciously mowed down, lives ruined, families ripped apart, a nation in mourning. The damage and devastation that can be inflicted by Islamic radicals has been proven over and over. At the World Trade Center, at an office party in San Bernardino, at the Boston Marathon, at a military recruiting center in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and many, many other locations. Only weeks ago in Orlando, Florida, 49 wonderful Americans were savagely murdered by an Islamic terrorist. This time, the terrorist targeted LGBTQ community. No good, and we're going to stop it. As your president, I will do everything in my power to protect our LGBTQ citizens from the violence and oppression of a hateful foreign ideology. We must have the best, absolutely the best gathering of intelligence anywhere in the world. The best. We must abandon the failed policy of nation building and regime change that Hillary Clinton pushed in Iraq, in Libya, in Egypt, and in Syria. Instead, we must work with all of our allies who share our goal of destroying ISIS and stamping out Islamic terrorism, and doing it now, doing it quickly. We're going to win. We're going to win fast. This includes working with our greatest ally in the region, the State of Israel. Recently, I have said that NATO was obsolete because it did not properly cover terror, and also that many of the member countries were not paying their fair share. As usual, the United States has been picking up the cost. Shortly thereafter, it was announced that NATO will be setting up a new program in order to combat terrorism, a true step in the right direction. Lastly, and very importantly, we must immediately suspend immigration from any nation that has been compromised by terrorism until such time as proven vetting mechanisms have been put in place. We don't want them in our country. My opponent has called for a radical 550% increase in Syrian. Think of this. Think of this. This is not believable, but this is what's happening. A 550% increase in Syrian refugees on top of the existing massive refugee flows coming into our country already under the leadership of President Obama. She proposes this despite the fact that there's no way to screen these refugees in order to find out who they are or where they come from. I only want to admit individuals into our country, who will support our values and love our people. Anyone who endorses violence, hatred, or oppression is not welcome in our country and never, ever will be. Decades of record immigration have produced lower wages and higher unemployment for our citizens, especially for African American and Latino workers. We are going to have an immigration system that works, but one that works for the American people. We are going to build a great border wall to stop illegal immigration, to stop the gangs and the violence, and to stop the drugs from pouring into our communities. I have been honored to receive the endorsement of America's Border Patrol agents. And will work directly with them to protect the integrity of our lawful immigration system. Lawful. By ending catch and release on the border, we will end the cycle of human smuggling and violence. Illegal border crossings will go down. We will stop it. It won't be happening very much anymore, believe me. Peace will be restored by enforcing the rules for millions who overstay their visas. Our laws will finally receive the respect that they deserve. Tonight, I want every American whose demands for immigration security have been denied, and every politician who has denied them, to listen very, very closely to the words I am about to say. On January 20th of 2017, the day I take the oath of office, Americans will finally wake up in a country where the laws of the United States are enforced. We are going to be considerate and compassionate to everyone. But my greatest compassion will be for our own struggling citizens.
We'll be back with more To the Point in just a moment. So now it's time to say so long to Cleveland and hello, Philadelphia. We'll be there all next week for the Democratic National Convention, and I'll have reports as well as next week's To the Point. We'll see you then.